Hi there, this is H. Victoria Hagro Atkerson. I'm an author and a writer. And today I wanted to say hi and happy holidays. We're a couple of weeks from Christmas, so here we go. And you can see behind me my black Santas. They're all over the place, and I'll show you a few of them on one of our flash chats because I think they're wonderful and they make me laugh. They make me laugh. Today we are going to be talking about my third book, which is Walking Among the Kudzu. And I wanted to talk to you about this book and also to talk about the characteristics of the Kudzu vine, because I think it is so important because it's the backdrop of this story and also of Buttermilk Bottom. Okay, this story, I chose the Kudzu vine as symbolizing the difficulties this child was having in her life, because Kudzu vines are wild, they are invasive, they're very unpredictable because they twist, they turn, they grow in places you don't expect them to grow in. They grow faster than you expect them to grow. So for those reasons, I thought this would be a very symbolic thing to talk about an adolescent's life. And this child ends up in the foster care system, and we follow her maturation to adulthood. Now, there are two characters in this book that my adopted brother, Larry Wright, decided that he absolutely loved, and I had to write a story about those two characters, and he nagged me literally for about 6 months, and I finally gave in and wrote Buttermilk Bottom. So I thank him for doing that because he's pretty clever in suggesting that. I never would have thought to write a story about Buttermilk Bottom. I never even thought of it as anything. But it was a huge part of my life that I never thought of until he mentioned it. And now we have this wonderful book. He was fascinated by the number writer and the voodoo priestess in this book. That's what spurred his consciousness, I guess. So we thank him for that. Like I said, it's a brilliant idea. And please, please don't tell him I said that. I'll never live it down. Okay, but I want you to take some time today to talk about the Kudzu vine, because it's a silent character in both books. And whenever you write about the South, that's one of the things you want to talk about. If you don't talk about the collard greens and all that kind of stuff, you're not writing about the South. And in this case, the Kudzu vine is a very ever-present thing in our lives when we were growing up. And it still is today because it grows everywhere. Right now I have cousins, Pete and Dot Weaver. They have a wall of kudzu vines that grows behind their house, and it looks like a mountain. I mean, but it's the kudzu vine that's growing over the tall pine trees. It's unbelievable and quite scary when you think about it, like what's going to come out of there. It's really crazy. But I always think of kudzu vines as I think of that old movie, The Blob. It comes at you. In all inconceivable directions. But we always tell visitors when they come to make sure when you go to bed, close the window. Don't sleep with the windows open because kudzu vines. And don't stand in the same place too long. Kudzu vines will get you. The kudzu vine was called in the South the plant that ate the South. So you can kind of imagine how invasive this plant is. It's really crazy. So I want to give you a little history lesson on the kudzu vine because I think it's really important to, like I said, to both stories. So the kudzu vine was introduced to America here in Philadelphia at the Centennial Celebration, which I think is really interesting. At that same Centennial Celebration, we were also introduced to the telephone and the typewriter. And I'm using both devices today, which is really crazy. And I'm talking about kudzu. So great, huh? Great parallels. So I want you to kind of visualize what this plant looks like. If you ever drive anywhere in the South, you see it all along the highways. And it's still growing. So in 1876, we learned about kudzu from Japan. They offered offered it to us as an ornamental plant, which was gorgeous. It's easy to grow, it's quick to grow, and it covers anything that you put in its way. So as an ornamental figure crawling over some particular shape that you had, it just happened like that. So people fell in love with it because it had glossy leaves, gorgeous flowers, and it was interesting. It was really interesting because some of the flowers smelled like grape jelly, some smelled like bubble gum, and it depends on the variety. They have different smells and tastes. And I understand that it's a good plant to eat. I haven't done anything with kudzu except try to pull it out of my mother's garden, because that was one of my jobs. I had to pull it out of the garden and keep it away from her plants. So I have a very personal relationship with kudzu, because pulling those roots out was a real difficult thing to do. So by the 1920s, farmers discovered that their cattle loved it, so that they raised it as a crop for their livestock. And that was very successful because it was cheap, because it grew very fast. So they loved it. By the 30s, they found out that this was a great ornamental plant, and gardeners start cultivating it. They use it to decorate their houses. Some plant it on the side of their house and to decorate, to have that green screen there. And other ways they use it as to cover a trellis, as an entrance to their property or their garden. And another way, which is really typically Southern, they would put stakes in the ground, attach to those stakes wires or cords, and they would let the vine grow up to the top of the porch. And of course, they had an instant curtain of shade, which worked out perfectly. I mean, it just takes care of the job just like that, because it works fast and it covers everything completely. So now they did have, I don't know if I mentioned this, during the 30s, they started having kudzu clubs, which was like people that were very enthusiastic about this plant. But in the 40s, the U.S. government decided that they had the answer to a problem that the southern states was having, which was erosion. The soil was going in all kinds of directions. So they hired thousands of people to plant acres and acres of kudzu vines all along the highways. Took care of the problem, covered it, and the problem was gone. But let's see, by 1950, the Department of Agriculture said, wait a minute, this stuff is growing too fast. It's covering everything. So they classified it as a weed, and kudzu became a 4-letter word. It was invasive, and it was a pest. So they wanted it gone. So they started devising, first they started using the present herbicides. They had to kill it. It didn't work. Some of the newer stuff they used on it didn't kill it. It made it grow. So they spent a few more years trying to get some things together to kill this weed, and they found several that worked, but it took 10 years for it to take effect. So that wasn't the answer. So in recent years, we discovered that if you cut the tops, the leaves off, and keep them cut, that the growth underneath would die automatically. Even that took time. It didn't happen overnight. You had to cut it 2 or 3 different times, maybe over the course of a whole summer or 2 summers or whatever. But it eventually will kill. If you don't let the leaves grow, the stuff underneath would die off. Now, also in the 50s and the 60s, the plant was a horrible mess. People really wanted it out of their yards and out of every crevice they could find. But to today, nothing has happened. But the battle really intensified. The 50s and the 60s, it was just like, we got to get rid of it. We have to get rid of it. But it never happened. Kudzu was still there. And as Japan said, you won the war in 45, but we gave you kudzu. So it's a gift that doesn't go away. So one of the things about kudzu that we all acknowledge and have observed firsthand was how kudzu takes over a particular area. It kills other indigenous plants that we would love to have. It covers everything completely, so those plants can't get the nourishment or the sun they need to grow. So that was one big drawback, because once it goes into an area, it just kills everything off. And the kudzu is standing, but the trees, the shrubs, and everything underneath is completely wiped out because it can't get the strength. Now, the roots of the kudzu and the plant itself really provide nitrogen and other elements to the ground. So it does enrich the soil and it does prevent erosion, but it really is immense because it has brought down houses, it has brought down electrical wires and telephone wires. So it's something that constantly has to be monitored and cared for. So that's kudzu, folks. Like I said, don't sleep with the windows open. So that was it. If you're ever in the South and there's something that you want to explore, check out Kudzu Vines, because it has a lot of medicinal uses also, and we'll get into that sometime later. We'll talk about some of the positive things about Kudzu Vines, and you know, there are some. But right now, we're going to be talking about Walking Among the Kudzu, and we're going to be talking about some of the characters in this book, which are very colorful and memorable. They are really wonderful. Now, if you're looking for my books, you need to go to Amazon.com, and you also need to go to Barnes & Nobles, and they're also on Kindle. So take a look at it, and please order this book. Now, before you go, as always, I'm asking you to like my channel and push that red button and subscribe to my program, okay? Take it easy. Enjoy your holidays. Enjoy the shopping. Enjoy all the lunacy involved with Christmas. And love someone special. And love to you. God bless.